Here we go again. Hello everyone. So you know what it is again. I'm turning 24. That sounds really old when I say it like that, but it's fucking crazy. Here it's crazy because it's actually pretty nice outside, so hopefully that's a good sign. My birthday, I always talk about what's going on and what's the update, so just kind of doing production work, making the makeup. What I really like is being in that type of industry, like the beauty, skincare industry, so I'm trying to level up in there, but I'm just kind of like freehanding it as I go. After being in the lab, it's like chill and stuff, but I feel like I learn a lot more. I don't know if it's a bigger team or it's just when I'm like consistently talking to people, because even though I hated like J. Crew and I was like so burnt out, I feel like I grew the most there personality wise and just my social skills. I project myself to other people, so I felt like I did more growing in that aspect. But then here it's like completely opposite. I don't really talk to anyone, so it's been kind of like more low-key, which is like chill. I guess that's what I wanted, but then the grass is always greener on the other side, and I feel like I'm just, I don't know, chasing after something, or I feel like I will never truly be satisfied, so I've just kind of learned to kind of accept reality and then try to move on from there. Soon I'd like to transition, but who knows if I will or not. I can't believe it's already almost my 1 year there. I started in June-ish. I guess the update from last year, continuing from when I turned 23, I quit J. Crew and then I flew to California with Yuna for like a week and a half-ish. Felt like that was like really cleansing, and it gave me a little bit of soul searching, or maybe some type of break, because I did realize I think I was burnt out, but I never really acknowledged it. After I quit and then I went to LA and then came back home, and then basically I was just job hunting for a month, and then I got this makeup job. So sometimes the universe just works itself out if you keep going at it, and it's just totally random too. It wasn't like anything I expected or was like particularly looking for. I was like, oh, like sure, like I'm just doing more like intern work, and then now since I've been there for longer, I'm kind of taking up more roles, and like I think it gives me more opportunity to talk about like the skills that I have now, which I can go forward hopefully for the next job. I'm capable of doing more things than I think. I was my worst critic, and I just literally beat myself over things. Like I was like, oh my god, like everyone's like moving on in life, like moving and like job and transfer or like whatever in life, and I felt like I was kind of stuck doing retail. This is where I'm gonna be for eternity, and I'm just gonna stay in my hometown forever. That was a bit dramatic, not gonna lie, now that I look back on it, but probably in the moment I was just like stressing so hard because I was like, why is my life not together? Why don't I get a job that I like where is my life headed? I was basically just trying to figure it out, and I feel like if I knew that everything would have been fine later, I would have just like cut myself some slack, because I felt like I give myself the most pressure besides like my parents and things. It has helped to kind of ease me in a sense, because I feel like in the beginning I'm always like, oh my god, like all I'm doing is like not putting makeup in jars, like doing the intern work, like I'm putting stickers on boxes. And then later on I kind of moved up to like making the powders and like makeup, and then soon doing more computer work and like inventory. Skin is kind of getting better, so maybe it's getting better with age, but I still probably don't have most of my life together. But it's nice to feel like I'm working towards something or like a goal. Living at home has really think about things that happened in the past more. I don't know if it's because I'm living in the same bedroom that I grew up in. I feel like I hold on to the past more than I think I do. It's like not even the past of like yesterday, but it's the past of like high school or college, like things that did kind of irk me, built up type of resentment, which I thought I was over. But if I keep having kind of reoccurring thoughts, if I'm alone, I really haven't overcome that. I kind of force-fed myself, be like, I moved on, like I'm doing other things. Like just because like I keep moving doesn't mean my mind is moving forward, is what I realized all the time. So I feel like I'm trying to work through that. It's hard when I'm trying to be my own therapist, is also not a good idea, but reading self-help books somewhat help, but it's kind of trying to get through the past, which one of the books is like recommends like meditation. And why it's such the biggest struggle still. Like I took a class in college and it was like chill and like relaxing and like re-energized me, but then now like when I have to do it on my own, it's just when I close my eyes, all I do is just sleep. Like I work, sleep, get ready for bed, and then go back to sleep, and then wake up to do it again. So I feel like I don't allow myself time. Like I barely allow myself time to work out even now. Even though I'm not even 25 or like in my mid-20s, I kind of realize my image of beauty and like physical beauty has changed a lot. I never realized how much I was like impacted by like social media or just like East Asian beauty standards. Maybe because like I was like, maybe because in college like I was getting more into like my K-pop phase, because I never got to do that in high school because I wouldn't really allow myself to do that since I was so busy with like volleyball and school, and like I didn't let myself kind of indulge in those things. So I think especially in college, like I tried like extreme diets and things like that. Not super extreme, like I would eat french fries, but like I feel like it wasn't the most tactful way of eating in moderation and like getting vegetables in and like working out a good amount just to feel good. I remember back then I would really place a strong desire, like I need abs, like this is like what I'm working towards, which isn't a bad thing. It's just one of those physical attributes where I'm like, once I have this, like I'm gonna be like hot as fuck, like that type of thing, which isn't entirely true, because you know, even if I did get it, which I never really fully got to the point, like if I ate something, like it would just be gone. This one TikTok, they're just like, abs are kind of useless because it's all for show, and then once you eat something, it's gone, which kind of blew my mind, which is true. It's like it doesn't support you anyway, like building muscles in your thighs or like building arm muscles, because like you can lift things, you can like carry things, and like you can walk up a flight of stairs. Like abs are just kind of there. So it really changed my perspective on how like I view fitness. Like the end of college, I just didn't really need, or I didn't have like a membership or anything, and it's just like finding the energy to work out I found a lot harder, even though like when I was younger I thought it a lot easier, maybe because there was a designated space, but then now the designated space is the living room. I think I am kind of at that stage where I view myself of just working out just to feel energized, because after I like sweat I do feel a little better, because I think it's just, you know, the endorphins pumping. I've been trying to get back into it because I fell out of it, and then I'm like, oh my god, like what's the point of working out? I think I stopped working out, specifically like weightlifting, because I really just wanted, like, this is gonna sound so bad, like I wanted like to be like skinny. So like weird to say out loud, because I don't know, I feel like I don't really talk about this, like weightlifting a lot, because for volleyball, and I'm like, oh, I'm just getting stronger, but then once I don't do that anymore, I'm like, what's the point of it? So I feel like the purpose of no longer really working out, I was like, oh, what's the point? Like I'm just gonna gain like weight from eating anyway. I feel like I grew accustomed to just eating and laying around, which isn't bad. It was just really different for me, which I think after a while I just felt kind of disgusting. Like when I would wake up from naps, I would be like sweating, because I don't know, maybe it's just from like the food coma or something. But with the looking at a lot of East Asian content, it's like, or just a lot of Asian content, they're like perceived very skinny and like thin and like kind of more petite, which I am kind of accepting more about my differences from like others. I'm trying to have it more as a strength. So it's kind of like, oh, I realize, oh, I kind of have a butt. So I have wide hips, and then maybe I'll try to get more like a perkier butt or something like that. Or it's like, oh, if I have thick thighs, I have thighs because it's there to support my butt, which I feel like these connections are so like obvious, but it's crazy how in my head they're not. It's just kind of like they're in the way. To me, I was like, wow, that's like what they look like, very tall and like skinny and like perfect and things like that. But then in reality, it's not really like that. I've learned to be more neutral about myself, just because it's like I'm not like super in love with myself, you know, kind of like has made it a lot easier for me, because I'm just like, oh yeah, I do have like thighs, I do have like somewhat of a butt, and I do have some maybe arm fat, like I would like to maybe trim, but it's kind of like, oh, it's just there, it's just a part of my body. And same with like my lower stomach, I was like, man, I gotta get rid of this, but that's just there, it's always gonna be there. And it's kind of like, unless I take a super like serious diet and things, exercise seriously, then it's not really gonna change. I think it's crazy that I used to have that type of mindset, and how I viewed myself, and how like I took in information on media and like projected to myself, when in reality now I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of vibing, like it is what it is. And it's kind of like I don't really care that much anymore to change it. I think I'm just working more with my strengths, like where I find like my best features to be, and just kind of working off of it, which has really kind of changed the game of like how I dress and things like that. Because if I'm just like, if I'm more comfortable like showing off my stomach, then I'll do it. But if not, then it's like whatever. Like I don't find that if I do it and then I don't feel good in it, then what's the point? So I realized also mentally how much like my relationships with people do impact me. I'm not really forcing myself to find new people. I think I've realized that there's different categories and groups of friends that you can have. Like not everyone has to be your bestie, or like be the person that you hit up. And I think it's a lot easier in order to talk to people, because oh, you're just there, you're my coworker. And then some people I'm like, oh, like I thought we were like closer friends, but then I think there's actions that kind of signal to me that you're a kind of real friend, versus like, oh, we were friends in that moment of time in each other's lives, that now we're in separate phases. Those things I've realized that words really don't mean much to me, like the love language. And just, I don't know, when people tell me like words for gratitude, it doesn't really trigger anything for me. I'm not like, oh, I'm so glad, like, oh, I really wanted to hear that. I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, because I think words hold little meaning to it, because people can just say things in the moment and then truly not mean it. And I think I've just learned to not take it to heart. I think actions definitely speak louder than words for me. Like if you do something, like not necessarily bring presents or like something like that, but I think putting in the work and the effort of doing something in order to have a shared experience or something like that really means a lot more to me. But it's also kind of like, sometimes I think these people don't really see what they're doing in the perspective that I see it, because maybe I'm in a more extreme way, but I'm trying to learn how to validate my own thinking. That is a little tough for me, which I don't know why. Anything like to reciprocate like the same energy I bring, because I feel like I always bring like good energy to the table, and then if you don't do it, then I just don't really try. I think it's a sign for me that you do not place me as a same priority as I place you. And it's not even the highest priority, but it's like kind of a reciprocation of energy type of way. I think that's just the reality of things, is not everyone is out to be your bestie for life, or they're just your friends in the moment, or sometimes they're just your friends. They can just be like people that you see like every once in a while, or even once, and it's just like, okay, that was good. There's no bad energy or anything like that, so I'm just gonna leave it till like they do something, and then if they say it, then I'm like, okay, cool, like if it fits with my schedule. But if not, I've just kind of try to go with the flow. That way I get used to not having to exude too much where I get exhausted and then I build up resentment. Just, I think communication is like a big thing to me. I communicate more, and I think it's just because I place a higher not priority, but I think if I find it important or I find you to be someone in my life that is meaningful, then I will put like the same time and energy. But if there's no or lack of reciprocation, like I understand we have different schedules and things like that, but I think there's a certain point where my patience runs out, my patience runs out, and I just don't really give a fuck anymore. So yeah, a little bit of 23 I tried to do was setting kind of boundaries for myself, because I feel like with communication and like putting others first, I think I didn't really put myself first in those cases, which is really weird because the little things kind of add up where I'm like, oh, like, yeah, I don't really set boundaries because I just kind of let things slide, but maybe I'm trying to like communicate that more or just set more boundaries where I think about how I kind of better each of my relationships. Or I think I'm definitely a quality versus quantity type girl. Like, I don't really need a huge ass friend group, which I think it, wow, this turning into a therapy session. I think it just stems back to like high school. I think I didn't really have like a really good group of friends until like my senior year, and I think it was just from those relationships that I had back then. They weren't real friends. It was kind of like friends because of the like you're doing the same activity together, you see each other all the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you vibe on the same wavelength or like something like that. You just happen to be in the same places consistently, which is what I realize like now. If I vibe with someone, it's because of like, oh, I agree with like your morals or like your personality you kind of the give, which is like crazy. It sounds like I'm talking about like a relationship with like a partner, but it's like even with, I think with friendships, if I take it to this depth, like I don't know how like relationships are gonna be for me. I think after retail I really burnt out of trying to be perky and nice and friendly all the time, like, which I don't mind doing, but it's just kind of like I think I wear a lot of my expressions on my face. Like, I can't really hide it that much anymore. I don't have to be like super friendly or like nice, or it's not like a facade type of thing. I'm just kind of like, okay, like I'll be nice like in this sense, but then like if you cross me or like if something's kind of weird, then I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be around that. Just in 23, I think I do get lonely, not in the sense of like without a partner, like because of I don't have many relationships with people, like friendships or anything like that. I think it's when there's sometimes a lack of reciprocation of like responses or like something. I think that's when I get lonely, is when I like think too hard about it. The top two emotions I felt is probably like loneliness and anger. I think I'm trying to learn that people have different social capacities, and just it's just with the limited amount of friends type of thing that, you know, there's going to be some rejections, there's going to be some like, you know, different schedules, so it all makes sense. But I think it's just like weirder because I feel like I've never really experienced like this type of loneliness. People described at the beginning of pandemic, I think when they live alone or like were like more cautious, and so they didn't really see many people, and so that's kind of like what I felt like. I don't know if it was like all the built up like emotions from the pandemic, because I never really allowed myself to like stop for a second or just really marinate on it. So yeah, and then anger, I think it's just I don't really know where to not like take out my anger physically, but it's just like, what do I do with like pent up emotions inside? Or it's just like sometimes it's taken like road rage, not like where I'm like swerving everywhere or I'm just like trying to hit people, but it's just like where I like yell in the car or I'm just like, you dumb bitch. Oh, is this healthy? Like, I don't know, where like I think it's just anger sometimes that have built up from resentment or something else that I just don't really know how to handle or like what to do with these emotions. It's like I have it in my hand and then I'm just like, okay, now what do I do with it? I'm like, maybe I should do like some sort of activity or sport or something to release this type of tension, which is probably why I should exercise more in order to release this tension and just anger of something that's been built up that I never really like talked about out loud. I think I've really hidden a different side of me that I try not to let people know about. And in response to that, it just makes me more overwhelmed, lonely. Like, it builds anger, resentment. Like, it's crazy, like, how I think in those moments I didn't really have a way to describe what I was feeling. I'm just like, I just know I don't feel good, or I'm just like, oh, I just feel so mad about this or this. And maybe I just self-diagnosed myself. I'm like, oh, it's because, like, I've really built up this resentment from this moment in the past that I thought I was over and I really wasn't. Or this kind of thing did tick me off, but I thought I could just, like, let it slide or let bygones be bygones. But I really am, like, sometimes a grudge person. I think if you cross me, then it's just kind of like, it's really hard for me to look at you the same way or to keep that same type of relationship the same. I just don't know if, like, falling in love is for me, or it's just that I will ever have that type of emotion, or maybe it's just the people I'm around, because I've been around the same people and, like, I'm not seeing anyone new, or it's like no one's really caught my eye enough. So I'm like, oh my god, like, am I super picky, or am I just, like, questioning, like, my sexuality, or it's just like, even 23, I went on a date and it was, like, the worst date of my life. Not my life, because benefit of the doubt, it was the only one I've been on, so I can't be too harsh, because who knows if it could get any worse. But in that phase, I was just trying to be nice, which I now learned that you're not obligated to stay very long, because I think I just like talking, and I'm like, I suggest things and it's like, okay, like, let's do this and this, and I think I really appreciate when people take the initiative to do that, because I get kind of tired doing that, or it doesn't really feel like any type of spark. Maybe that's probably why my love language is quality time. And I think if it's, like, a lot of my contribution, I think that was it. Not the ick, but, like, it was not it for me, was the fact that I, like, did more of the work, which I'm grateful, I guess he, like, paid for, like, my drink and things like that. But it's just like, I think I've really forced myself to, like, smile and, like, continue the conversation when I didn't really need to. Like, if I didn't vibe after a certain amount, or if it doesn't hit off, then I'm allowed to be like, okay, that was really nice to meet you, but I think from this, we're better off as friends. I think I was just trying to, like, not be as judgmental, but it just ended in the same way I assumed it would be. It was okay. Like, I don't think I would ever do that again. And I think if I turned back the time, oh my god, this sounds so mean. I think if I turned back the time, I don't think I would do it. With everything else in life, I'm, like, super picky, and I think with love, I should be. Maybe I need to go on more dates or, like, something. I think I can tell when I hit it off with people, and if I do, like, I've learned I can be a pursuer, so I don't really care that much, like, who pursues who, but I think it does speak a lot to, like, body language and things like that, and what it means, or it signals to me. Or maybe I'm just kind of a control freak, where I like to be the first to, like, initiate and then take control of the situation. So who knows. And 23, I just really put myself out there too much for others, and I didn't really take care of myself that much. I think I really put myself on the back burner, because I think I'm just always the type of person that's like, oh yeah, like, I'm for you. I drop my ego a lot in the moment. I'm just like, I'm not gonna do anything until, like, so-and-so takes action, and then I go forward. I'm just like, yeah, like, let's do this and this and this and this, and then I end up kind of doing it. But I think it's fine to a certain extent, but I think setting boundaries could ease a little bit more. I think now I'm not as, like, troubled by it. Things that would go through my head when I didn't even talk to them about this, which is, like, crazier, because, like, these thoughts and, like, emotions of, like, oh, they don't care, being used all the time, I think maybe that's also a trauma response from something. I'm just so, like, afraid, or I really try to avoid being used, which, like, I know the friends I have, or, like, the people in my life would never, like, consider it like that, but I think it just pops up in my head, like, no matter how close, like, you are, like, you never really truly know the people, which is, I think it's just a response from high school and the relationships I had with people, and they weren't the best people for my life. So yeah, that learning that learning moment really took a toll on me and how I really perceive relationships and how I view people. And I think I see actions that really signal to me like, oh, this is what real friendship is and what others would use you for, and that's not being a true friend. I think that's what I really got from 23 is like relationships with my friendships and families like mean so much more to me than I thought, because I think back then I didn't really take it as seriously, or I took it for granted a little. So, you know, when you grow up, I think it's when you start to become more grateful for the people around you and the situation you're in. I think ever since the shooting scare, I really have made my life more like purposeful and meaningful and grateful. Like in those like moments, I'm so thankful to be able to have a good relationship with my family and my friends that oh, why am I getting choked up? What the fuck? It's like if your life flashes before your eyes or something like that. It's like, who are the people that you're thinking of and what they really mean to you, and like how grateful I am to be able to live at home like rent free. I'm like so grateful that work is within like it's not that far of a commute, that I was able to find a job, that I have a good relationship with my parents, that they let me stay with my sister, with that my grandma's still here, that I just realized how much like meaning and like there is in like my life and the people around it and the opportunities I get to have. So oh my god, I did not expect myself to slightly choke up over that, but I think it's just doing when you do like a memory recall, it just makes me grateful. Like I think 23, I've just been so grateful for every single thing that's happened, and it doesn't even have to be like the biggest like deal, like up, like, you know, those LinkedIn posts are like, oh my god, I'm so proud to say. It doesn't even have to be those moments. I'm so grateful that I can like go drive like in a car. I'm so grateful that I have people around me that genuinely care for me, and I see the actions that they do, or even if they try, or how like lenient and like they do care for me. And yeah, so I think that's why this year I've really taken care of like people a lot, but I haven't taken care of myself. Is 24 gonna be just as emotional, or is that just me? I'm grateful that I'm able to explore different routes that I've always wanted to venture in but never had the guts to in college. So I think I'm trying to make up for lost times now, which I really am trying to implement in my head, that it's like never too late. And so I'm just not gonna take myself seriously. I think I just need to be more vulnerable and honest with myself and develop more of a gut feeling on where I want to take my life. So we'll see. It's helpful how I have become more financially literate, thinking more about how to be smart with my money and like for my future planning. So I think it's been fun kind of being able to experiment in that way, or just learn in that way. I should have been doing that since the beginning, but I just found it more interesting now. What do I hope for at 24 to 25? Wow. I feel like that's gonna be like a big life shift, which I could be wrong about, but it just feels like the closer I get to my mid-20s and later 20s, like it's just my life shifts around more. Even this year, I feel like things change, and I think the same as I did at 23, healthy relationships with family and friends, and being able to set boundaries for myself and gaining more confidence. I would like to, but I'm not in a rush to. I think I'd like to move out to a city, but I just don't know where yet. And nothing's speaking to me, not like other people in my life where they know like this is the place that I've wanted to go and live, but I feel like I haven't really felt that way, and so until I do, I'm gonna be saving money at home, so that's a plus. I think I should read more. Yeah, I definitely need to read more. I kind of fell off the boat on reading just because I think I just get so tired, but I think I really need to delegate more time into that because I just need my mind to be processing more. Keep improving my life and my knowledge. Just gaining more knowledge, I think, is the best medicine for me. Hello, I'm in my car and I'm waiting before I go meet up with friends, but I thought I would do some continuation or just, I don't know. I feel like I missed some parts in the first part when I was talking my birthday since my mind was all over the place. So I think some things I didn't get to, but I did want to talk about in my lifestyle are I'm trying to get more into minimalism. So I definitely used to always be a shopaholic, and I think it just went down to the sales, and like I was definitely into like more a little bit of fast fashion style. So whenever I saw a good deal, I'd be like, oh, that's so good, but I would just end up grabbing so many things that I end up outgrowing and just I end up not loving as much anymore. So I think it's just having to do with maybe just because I worked at J. Crew, I was like, I can't stand shopping. I feel like I have to love my pieces now, and I've just turned to mainly thrifting. Like I feel like I shop like 80% thrifting, or maybe 90%. I shop a little bit online, but I try not to get too much. But it's just like, you can't break old habits so quick. I do just primarily thrifting, or if anything, just nothing, or try to stay away from online shopping because I know how bad the fast fashion industry is. Even if the deals are cheap, thrifting gives me more of a challenge to create my own style, which is kind of hard because all the clothes in there are like vintage, like hello, like someone old used to wear this, and there's a certain aesthetic I feel like that's correlated with that. So just trying to create my own kind of sense of style, and basically with the colors I see. But maybe because I work all the time, except for the weekends, and I don't really think about buying new clothes, nor do I have the urge for it. I think it's like I used to like love hauls. Like I still like seeing hauls, but then I feel like I just don't have that same urge as I used to do when I was younger, where I would just be like, oh my god, look at all the pile of stuff I got, and then I look back and I'm like, do I even wear that stuff anymore? Like, it's all clothes that I eventually didn't end up liking the design of it, or it just doesn't fit right, but I always force myself to figure it out how to make it fit right. And I don't know, I think if it just doesn't fit the first time, then it's just not gonna work out. Good enough. Okay, hello, I have reparked. I think it's about being financially literate this year is what I've learned. So I've learned to kind of invest in index funds. I did my retirement, and yeah, I started a high yield savings, so that way when I move out I'll have some money in, so I'm not struggling just in case. Hopefully a year's worth of rent already, depending on where I go. I started putting more value to money and how I spend it, and just being smarter about it. Like 23, what do I want for 24? I think I really want to take a dance class or some sort of new hobby. I just want to do that, but I always stop myself. So I really need to seriously consider it and put more things into action, because I don't know, I feel like it'd just be such a fun experience. I think I should try doing a solo travel at some point, but like safely and when I feel comfortable, because I don't know, I think lately when I do go out alone, I feel more wary and scared. I don't know if it's pandemic and other things happening, so I'm just being more on high alert, or I feel like really scared about it. to work on having some guts to do the things I want to do, like do a dance class, maybe a pottery class, like who knows. Just having kind of new memories is what I really want, especially when I'm getting older. I feel like my energy and people's energy start to kind of digress, because you know, when you get old you just get tired more. I think I just look more now presently. I take things day by day, because I feel like whenever I hear like future things, I'm like, is it really gonna happen, or is this just kind of like, you know, imagining it and then not putting into action, which I really hate, because it's just like, what's the point of all this work and things like that, and like mental like space. Think so much about how I think before I used to compare myself, and sometimes it did cause jealousy of like, you know, when you see people on LinkedIn and it's like, oh, your life is so much together, but then when I look at like myself, I'm like, oh, I feel like I always downplay myself. But then when I talk to other people about like what I do or like my job, they're like, oh, that's so cool. I'm like, really? Like, oh my gosh, like why did I ever think that I was like, it's not as fun as doing IT or something like that. So I'm like, what the heck? I don't know. Now I don't compare myself when I see people's like achievement and things like that. I'm just like, oh, like good for them, like they're on their own path and I'm just on my own. I just don't really care as much. I'm trying to do more of a social media cleanse, because I feel like for me, social media, when I know too much, I get really overwhelmed and I go into like a spiral of thoughts, and I think when it comes to that point, that means I should try to like tone down on it. Sometimes it's comparing, sometimes I'm like, oh, like I overthink certain situations or like actions. So I think altogether I just need to do maybe a social media cleanse. That really includes TikTok, because I feel like I spend so much time on it and I do wonder what other things I could be doing with that time. I try to justify it and be like, oh, I'm also relaxing though. Like other people around my age, I'm like, their life seems like this, or it's like tech. I always see a lot of tech stuff and I'm like, okay, that's like good for you. But I'm just doing my own thing, and I feel like I've always been that way, but I think I always set myself to a certain standard still, even when I was searching for different jobs before I quit J.Crew. I was like, oh my god, I need a lab job. I need to put my chemistry degree to use. But then when I went to the interviews, I'm like, oh my god, like, I feel like I would rather be packing, like, makeup jars or, like, making makeup than analyzing mold on houses or something, or moss. Like, I would never trade that for the world or anything, now that I think about it. But I think in those moments when I ask people, they're like, oh yeah, why not try and see? But then if I have a gut feeling about it, then why? Even if it's just for money, I feel like it's so hard for me to accept something when like I'm truly not interested in it. I think it's something I definitely won't regret going into or trying out, because it's like, how often do people say like, oh, like I was in like cosmetics and things like that, because I always like liked the idea of it, and then now I'm actually in it. So I think it's definitely like something I should be proud of. And now these people are coming out. I just like being proactive. I'm a proactive person, like talking or like doing things. So I'm like, oh, I just need to do more. Thanks for sticking around if you did, and I'll see you when I turn 25 if I do this again. So, see ya.